Since a magazine extension tube for a shotgun can be installed or removed from a shotgun without disassembly of the trigger mechanism, does that magazine extension tube have to be registered?
Extension tubes are neither fixed or detachable magazines and are therefore not regulated by PICO.
Hey everybody, Todd Vandermeid back for another edition of Freedom Steel, former NRA contract lobbyist, Illinois gun law guru. And sorry for the poor audio quality from the state on that first clip. But that first clip was from the first public hearing on the semi-auto ban registration rules that have been promulgated by the Illinois State Police. And I wanted you to hear that question and answer from the state police. That is an attorney for the state police that gave the answer. It is a staffer for the state police that is reading the written comments that were put into the record. And I want to sit here and I want to do a second one, because what we're then going to do is we're going to dive into my testimony in front of the committee today. And we'll play that for you. Then we'll have a few comments. I want to keep this. I don't want this to be a half-hour video, but I just want you guys to see what they said today and why it was these two comments that they made were the basis for a chunk of my testimony.
Is a pistol grip that fits an AR-15 style rifle an assault weapon attachment when it is installed on a bolt-action rifle that is indubitably not an assault weapon? The use of grips designed for AR-15 style rifles on bolt-action rifles is indeed common. What if one swaps grips between an assault weapon and a non-assault weapon?
Yes, a pistol grip is an assault weapon attachment. Again, we refer you to the Illinois State Police website and FAQ number 11. The next person invited to speak will be Mr. Todd Vandermeid on behalf of Freedom's Steel.
Thank you, Ms. Bond. Members of State Police, Todd Vandermeid on behalf of Freedom Steel. I want to focus on just a couple aspects here this morning. Yesterday at the hearing in Springfield, it was said by the state police, magazine extension tubes are neither fixed or detachable magazines and not regulated by PICA. I would direct your attention to section 24-1.10. The issue isn't a fixed or detachable magazine in 1.10. It's large capacity ammunition feeding devices. And the statute says, a magazine, belt, drum, feed strip, or similar device that has a capacity of, or that can be readily restored or converted to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition for long guns and more than 15 rounds of ammunition for handguns. Part 2, any combination of parts from which the device described in paragraph 1 can be assembled. Your statement yesterday directly contradicts the black letter of the law. The law says if you have a combination of parts, and this is an illustration of the types of magazine extension tubes that Mr. Sanders referenced in his comments yesterday, Mr. Witowski referenced yesterday in their comments. I would point out that your statement yesterday flies in the face of the state police's own submission to the federal court in the Southern District of Illinois. Here's a picture of parts. And as such, magazine tubes fall squarely within the combination of parts that can extend or convert, because the state police has offered no definition of readily restored, which means turned back to a condition it once was in, or converted to something it never was but can be made into something different. How do you guys get around the black letter of the law?
The state police has indicated that it will take those comments under advisement and attempt to provide additional clarification in the proposed rules during the first notice process.
Well, since you haven't provided a definition, in the case of Vanderstock v. Garland, argued in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals just a few weeks ago, The ATF, which I think we would all recognize as a very technical group when it comes to firearms, sat there and said that they submitted in briefs and footnotes that it's 8 hours of labor with a fully capable machine shop is the standard that they use to evaluate readily convertible or readily restored.
And that information was provided to us yesterday, and it is being taken under advisement and will be considered as part of our corrections or amendments to our proposed rules during this first notice process. We
Okay.
appreciate that input.
So let's get back to the shotguns that Mr. Witowski talked about yesterday. And let's particularly talk about the Remington 870. Those shotguns have a fixed magazine tube attached to the receiver. They're typically permanently mounted by, in the case of the 870 or the 1100, by silver soldering. So while 1.19 or 1.9 deals with an exemption for manually operated firearms, there's no such exemption in 1.10. And you cannot sell any magazine that can be converted. And by virtue of this, the Remington 870 pump action shotgun is illegal for sale in the state of Illinois because the magazine is permanently affixed and can be readily converted to. I can convert a Remington 870 in less than 5 minutes. Now, depending on whether or not you want to count the opening of the packaging for the extension tube in that. So again, I don't see, in your clarification earlier today about parts, pistol grips, thank you very much. You just told us that while there is no exemption under 1.10 for manually operated firearms, you just banned a whole style of pump-action shotguns that are sold with AR-15 style pistol grips, AR-15 style stocks, AR-15 style buffer tubes. You just expanded the ban in here because 1.10 does not have an exemption for manually operated firearms with the exception of lever guns and tubular magazines for 22 rimfire ammunition. So I don't know how you're going to get around this. I think the black letter of the law is broader than the administration wants to admit to. And I think you have the same problem when it comes to the 1022. The black letter of the law says that it's anything, a barrel shroud attached to the barrel, or, that's the law, as Mark Smith of Ford Diners says, the law that partially or completely encircles the barrel, allowing the bearer to hold the firearm with the non-trigger hand without being burned. It has no relevance to how it's attached to the gun. The black letter of the law that GPAC wrote bans the 1022. And if you look at the 1022 specifically, there is a barrel band around the standard traditional old walnut stock model that connects the barrel to the forend. I don't see how you're going to get around this without a legislative change. And that's how I want to understand, how does the agency defy the black letter of the law?
The Illinois State Police will propose rules to the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, and it will be up to that committee to determine whether or not the Illinois State Police has exceeded its statutory authority.
Okay, and I see that you quote the FAQs several times in your response to people, and thank you very much. But I have had the argument and discussion on the side of the road with your troopers about gun laws for being pulled over for a speeding infraction. Those FAQs aren't going to hold up when somebody is detained or questioned by a law enforcement officer. You can print those off all you want, and I've actually seen people hand parts of the law, not this law but other ones, to law enforcement officers, and they say, we don't care. You may beat the rap, you ain't going to beat the ride. And that's what I think you have a big problem here, because you haven't defined readily restored, you haven't defined readily convertible or what any of that means. And those are, I think, legitimate areas for the state police and their rules to come down with something, just as the questions yesterday about what size shotgun shell is being used. It's not about the ammunition. I understand the Act specifically does not regulate ammunition. but there has to be a benchmark, because as it was alluded to yesterday, I can fit way more shells using 1 3/4 inch minis into any one of my 12 gauge shotguns than I can if they're 3.5 inch shells. And what I think the public is asking for is, what's the measuring stick we're supposed to use to find out if we are in compliance or we're not in compliance? I would also go so far is, I wonder which, since GPAC is all pride in their authorship, along with Mr. Morgan, I just wonder why they hate Star Wars so much. You see, this is a picture of Obi-Wan's lightsaber from the original Star Wars movie. And you know what they used to make that, the prop masters? They actually used a World War I No. 3 Mark I British rifle grenade launcher. They also used a flash hider and booster from an A&M 2 50 caliber Browning machine gun. So the question is, as a good law-abiding citizen and Star Wars fan, do I have to register my lightsaber? Because I actually have these parts.
If it meets the definitions in the PICA Act, then it will be subject to regulation and the endorsement affidavit process.
So with that, I think your agency has been put into a position where it can't win, because a group of people who knew next to nothing about firearms or all the intricacies of all these things that they put into a law passed what they wanted with little thought to your agency. And I don't necessarily envy your position that you're in, because you've been handled a big pile of goo to try to fix, because the legislature isn't going to go about and do it. And I think you're in a catch-22 where you're damned if you do or damned if you don't. And, you know.
Mr. Vandermeid, I have to let you know that you've reached the end of your public comment period.
Thank you very much for your indulgence today.
Thank you for your comments.
Well, there you have it, boys and girls. I think my comments kind of speak for themselves, but a couple of things. They gave us a whole new gift today, because that second clip that I played early on about the question and answer that was done from the written comments. So what they're saying there is that a pistol grip that fits on an AR-15 or some other attachment like that is a prohibited attachment. And that means that they are illegal for sale, period, across the board. And actually, this is where doing it on the fly I got two parts of it slightly conflated. But under 1.9, the sale of those attachments, they are now saying, is carte blanche verboten. So if you have a Ruger American rifle, if you have a Mossberg 590 that uses an AR pistol grip, take the Ergo adapter kits, those guns can't be sold because they have assault weapon attachments on them. Even though the gun itself would normally be exempt from the ban, a bolt action rifle, a pump action shotgun. But because that chassis has an AR pistol grip on it, a pistol grip that would be interchangeable. Could be an 870, could be a Mossberg 590, could be a Ruger American, could be any one of a number of other firearms out there. The fact that that part is on there makes, or that I'm using parts and attachments almost interchangeably here, that with that, you can't sell that firearm because it has a verboten attachment on it, even though the attachment isn't on a firearm that's banned per se. This is how muddied it is. So they've just expanded the ban today. I hope y'all got a good kick out of my comments about Obi-Wan. Here's one of those style lightsabers. I was gonna do a separate video on this concept here and this thought about this, because I think it'll be kind of fun that we do something. Hey, is this what they actually did? And we'll get into this a little deeper because right now this video's passing the 15-minute mark, and I wanted you guys to see what's being said and how we're arguing some of this. And if you listen to them when we talked about magazine tubes, that is a big deal because now it's going to go after a whole lot of semi-auto shotguns because they can be readily converted to. I didn't get into base plates on magazines because I was running out of time. You can kind of see me. I don't usually read prepared statements. I will have stuff if I need to quote a section law and stuff like that. And you can't really see it from here, but the look on their face when I showed them their own declaration to the court in Southern Illinois was priceless. So with that, as always, please like, subscribe, copy and paste the link, share it around to all your social media stuff. We'll have more comments about the registration rules that are proposed and the hearings that are taking place. Do a little deeper dive. I'm trying to keep all these videos down around the 15, 16-minute mark so everybody has a chance that they can listen to them and not get locked into a novel and all that. So we will be getting more content out. It's been hectic. I've got a night class to be teaching tomorrow, and I got to be setting conic stacks, but we'll get more into this a little bit deeper. And as always, thank you and frag out.